The slap echoed through the cathedral like a gunshot. I didn't expect it. Not from Elena. Not here, in front of 300 guests dressed in silk and expensive cologne. Not beneath the vaulted ceiling where stained glass saints judged us all with their painted eyes. But my sister's hand connected with my cheek hard enough to make my teeth click together, and for one perfect, horrible second, the world went silent. Then it shattered. "You ruined everything," Elena hissed, her voice breaking on the last word. Her face was flushed, mascara already streaking down her cheeks like war paint. "You couldn't just leave it alone." My cheek burned. I tasted copper where I'd bitten my tongue. The bouquet I'd been holding, white roses and baby's breath, sickeningly innocent, lay scattered across the marble floor between us like tiny corpses. I should have said something. Defended myself. Explained that I'd only been trying to help, that I'd discovered the truth about Marcus 3 days ago, and thought she deserved to know before she married him. That finding out your fiancé was embezzling from his own company wasn't something you kept quiet about, even if it meant destroying a wedding that cost more than most people's houses. But I didn't say any of that, because behind Elena, standing at the altar where she should have been taking her vows, Marcus looked relieved. And that's when I noticed him. He stood in the third pew on the left, perfectly still while everyone else shifted and whispered and pulled out their phones. A man in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp jaw. Darker eyes. The kind of face that belonged in a Renaissance painting depicting fallen angels. He wasn't looking at Elena. He wasn't looking at Marcus, who was already backing away from the altar like a man reprieved from execution. He was looking at me, and he was smiling. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator watching something interesting happen to its prey. "Elena," I started, but she raised her hand again. This time, different fingers caught her wrist. I hadn't seen him move. One moment he was 3 rows back. The next he was beside us, his hand wrapped around Elena's wrist with the casual confidence of someone used to touching dangerous things. His grip looked gentle. The whiteness of Elena's fingers suggested otherwise. "Touch her again," he said quietly, his voice carrying through the cathedral like smoke. "And die." The silence that followed was different. Heavier. The kind of silence that precedes violence. Elena went very still. I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, then something I'd never seen on my sister's features before. Fear. Pure, primal fear. "Mr. Volkov," she whispered. I wasn't. "I know what you weren't," he interrupted, still speaking in that soft, terrible voice. His accent was slight, just enough to make certain consonants sharp as knives. "You weren't thinking. You weren't being grateful that your sister saved you from an embezzler and a coward. You weren't considering that there are consequences for making a scene in front of people who matter." He released her wrist. She stumbled back like she'd been burned. "Apologize," he said. It wasn't a request. Elena's mouth opened and closed. She looked at Marcus, who had somehow made it halfway to the side exit. She looked at the guests, all of them frozen in their seats like someone had pressed pause on reality. Then she looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw my sister again. The girl who used to braid my hair before school, who taught me how to apply eyeliner, who cried when I got accepted to college. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Then she turned and ran, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a ghost. The man, Volkov, Elena had called him, turned to face me fully for the first time. Up close, he was even more devastating. Not handsome in any conventional sense, but commanding in a way that made conventional beauty irrelevant. There was a scar along his jaw, thin and white. His eyes were so dark they looked black in the cathedral's dim light, and they studied me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're bleeding," he observed. I touched my lip. My fingers came away red. I hadn't even noticed. "It's nothing," I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. "Thank you for stopping her. You didn't have to do that." "I know." He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, actual linen, monogrammed, and held it out. When I hesitated, something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe. "It's clean. I promise I haven't killed anyone with it recently." The joke should have been funny. It wasn't. I took the handkerchief anyway, pressed it to my lip. It smelled like expensive cologne and something else. Gunpowder, maybe. Or I was imagining things. "You're Mira Castellano," he said. Not a question. "You know my name." "I know many things." He tilted his head slightly, studying me like I was a painting he was considering buying. "I know you work at the city planning office. I know you live alone in a third-floor apartment in Riverside. I know you drive a 10-year-old Honda and you take the same route to work every morning. I know you warned your sister about Marcus Chen 3 days ago, and I know she didn't believe you." Ice flooded my veins. "How do you—" "I also know," he continued, his voice dropping lower, "that Marcus Chen wasn't just embezzling from his company. He was embezzling from mine. Through his company. A shell game, very clever, but not clever enough. I've been watching him for 6 months, waiting for the right moment to address the situation." He stepped closer. I should have stepped back. I didn't. "You did me a favor today, Mira Castellano. You exposed him publicly, in front of witnesses who matter, humiliated him, made him run. That saves me the trouble of doing it myself." His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Unfortunately, it also means you've made yourself visible. To me. To my associates. To anyone else who was watching Marcus Chen." "I don't understand," I whispered, but I was starting to. God help me, I was starting to. "Yes, you do." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture almost tender except for the coldness in his eyes. "The question is, what am I going to do about you?" Somewhere behind us, someone was crying. The priest was praying. Guests were flooding toward the exits like water from a broken dam. And Alexei Volkov was still touching my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone with the careful precision of a man measuring a weapon. "Come," he said finally. "We have things to discuss, and you're bleeding on your dress." He turned and walked toward the side entrance. After 3 steps, he paused, looked back. "That wasn't a request, Solnishko." I followed him. I wish I could say I didn't have a choice. The Mercedes idled outside the cathedral like a sleeping predator. Black, sleek, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. A man in a dark suit stood by the rear door, his hand resting on his hip in a way that suggested the bulge beneath his jacket wasn't his phone. I stopped walking. Alexei Volkov turned, one eyebrow raised. "Problem?" "I'm not getting in that car." "No?" He looked genuinely curious, like I'd said something fascinating instead of obvious. "What's your alternative plan? Walk home in your bridesmaid dress while your sister's collapsed wedding becomes tomorrow's headline? Wait for Marcus Chen's associates to realize you're the reason their money pipeline just exploded?" The sun was too bright. My cheek still throbbed where Elena had hit me. The handkerchief in my hand was spotted with blood that was already turning brown. "I didn't ask for any of this," I said. "Neither did I." He walked back toward me, each step deliberate. "But here we are. You made a choice 3 days ago when you started investigating Marcus. You made another choice today when you told your sister the truth. And now you're making a third choice." He stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "Choose carefully." Behind us, Wedding guests were streaming out of the cathedral. I caught glimpses of their faces, curiosity, scandal hunger, the particular glee people feel when watching someone else's life implode. My phone buzzed in the small clutch I'd been carrying. Then again, and again. 5 minutes, Volkov said quietly. Sit in my car for 5 minutes. If you still want to leave after that, Dmitri will drive you anywhere you want to go. My word. His word. Like that meant something. Like I should trust a man who knew where I lived, what I drove, what route I took to work. Like I had any other choice. I got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and something darker, cedar, maybe, or sandalwood. The seats were cream-colored, buttery soft. Volkov slid in beside me, and Dmitri closed the door with a solid thunk that sounded like a vault ceiling. We didn't move. Well? I said after 30 seconds of silence. You have 5 minutes. Talk. He smiled. Not the predatory smile from before, something smaller, more genuine. It made him look younger, more dangerous somehow. Marcus Chen laundered approximately $4 million through his company over the past 18 months, he said conversationally, like we were discussing the weather. Money that belonged to various people. Some of it was mine. Most of it belonged to men who are significantly less patient than I am. My stomach dropped. 4 million? Give or take. The exact accounting is complicated. He shifted slightly, his arm resting along the back of the seat. Not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat of him. When you exposed him today, you did 2 things. First, you prevented him from taking more. Second, you made him visible. Vulnerable. Men like Marcus survive by being invisible. By the time tomorrow's sun rises, he'll either be in custody or at the bottom of the harbor. And you're telling me this because you need to understand what you've done. His voice hardened. Those men who lost money? They don't care that you were trying to help your sister. They care that you're connected to Marcus. They care that you work in city planning, which means you have access to permits, zoning files, building codes. They'll wonder what else you know, who else you've told. The car felt smaller suddenly. I didn't tell anyone, just Elena. I know. I've been monitoring your communications for 3 days. He said it like it was normal, like violation was just another form of courtesy. But they don't know that. They'll assume. And assumption, in my world, is often fatal. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my thighs, willing them still. So what do you want? Why did you stop Elena? Why are you helping me? I never said I was helping you. The words hung between us like smoke. Outside, the guests were dispersing. I watched a woman in a purple hat climb into a Lexus. A teenage boy in an ill-fitting suit scrolling through his phone. Normal people going back to their normal lives. Then what do you call this? I asked. Volkov leaned forward, rested his elbows on his knees. In profile, his face was all sharp angles, the kind of beautiful that came with a warning label. I call it collecting an asset. You disrupted a situation I'd been carefully managing. That makes you unpredictable, dangerous, in your own way. But it also makes you valuable. Valuable how? He turned his head, met my eyes. You're smart, observant. You uncovered Marcus's scheme in 3 days using nothing but public records and intuition. You stood up in front of 300 people and destroyed your sister's wedding because you thought it was the right thing to do. Something shifted in his expression. Most people don't have that kind of courage. Or stupidity. I haven't decided which it was. It was love, I said quietly. I loved her. I still do. Love. He tested the word like it was foreign. Yes, that makes you even more dangerous. A black SUV pulled up behind us. Volkov's phone buzzed once. He glanced at it, and whatever he saw there made his jaw tighten. "Time's up," he said. "Decision time, Solnishko. Walk away, go home, hope Marcus's associates don't connect you to their losses, or... He reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card. Heavy cardstock, black with silver lettering. Just a phone number, no name. "Or you call me, tonight, before midnight, and we discuss terms." "Terms for what?" "Protection, employment, survival. Take your pick." He handed me the card. Our fingers brushed, and I felt that touch like electricity. I'm not a good man, Mira Castellano, but I'm a useful one. And right now, you need useful more than good. Dimitri opened the door. Late afternoon sun flooded in, painfully bright. I got out, turned back. "Why do you keep calling me that, Solnishko?" Volkov's smile returned, sharp and knowing. "It means little sun, because you're bright and warm and dangerous to look at directly." He leaned back in his seat. "Also because people like me live in the dark, and we're drawn to light, even when we know it'll burn us." The door closed. The Mercedes pulled away, silent and smooth. I stood on the cathedral steps, Elena's wedding in ruins behind me, a Mafia boss's phone number in my hand. My phone buzzed again. 15 missed calls. 23 texts. I looked at the card, at the number embossed in silver. 10 hours until midnight. I started walking. My apartment looked different when I knew someone had been watching it. I stood in the doorway for a full minute before stepping inside, scanning every corner like the shadows might have teeth. The third-floor walk-up that had felt cozy yesterday now felt exposed, vulnerable. The windows facing the street suddenly seemed too large, the locks on the door too flimsy. Alexei Volkov knew I lived here. Which meant other people could know too. I locked the door, then the deadbolt, then the chain. It still didn't feel like enough. My phone had finally stopped buzzing around 7 p.m. 43 missed calls, 61 texts. Most from numbers I didn't recognize. Reporters, probably, or friends of friends who wanted the scandal firsthand. 3 from my mother, each one more hysterical than the last. 7 from Elena's number, though I suspected Marcus might have sent some of those. Nothing from Elena herself. I sat on my couch still wearing the bridesmaid dress, pale blue silk that had cost me 2 weeks' salary, and stared at Volkov's card on my coffee table. The number gleamed silver under my cheap lamp, looking far too expensive for my apartment with its thrift store furniture and walls I'd never bothered to paint. "Before midnight," he'd said. I checked my phone. 9:47 p.m. 2 hours and 13 minutes to decide if I was going to invite a monster into my life, or hope that the other monsters didn't notice me first. I got up, paced to the window. My Honda was still parked across the street where I'd left it this morning. This morning, when my biggest worry was whether Elena would cry during the ceremony. When I'd been stupid enough to think the truth would set everyone free instead of setting everything on fire. A car passed below. Dark sedan, windows tinted. It slowed as it passed my building. My heart kicked against my ribs. The car kept going. I released a breath I hadn't known I was holding, pressed my forehead against the cool glass. This was insane. I was seeing threats everywhere, jumping at shadows, letting a dangerous man's words crawl inside my head and make a home there. You need useful more than good. I hated that he was right. My laptop sat on the kitchen counter, still open to the research I'd done on Marcus. Financial records, business filings, corporate partnerships. It had taken me 3 sleepless nights to piece together the pattern. Money flowing in from shell companies, then flowing out again to offshore accounts. I'd thought I was being clever, thorough. I'd had no idea whose money I was tracking. I opened a new tab, typed, Alexei Volkov. The search results made my blood run cold. Real estate mogul, import, export business, charitable foundations. On the surface, he was legitimate, wealthy, connected, respectable. But between the lines, in the gaps where information should have been, I could see the shape of something else. Articles that mentioned him briefly then dropped the subject. Reporters who'd started investigating his business dealings and then suddenly stopped. A pattern of silence that was louder than any accusation. One article, buried 6 pages deep, mentioned a fire at a warehouse 5 years ago. 3 bodies found. No suspects ever charged. The warehouse had belonged to a company that, if you followed the ownership chain far enough, connected to one of Volkov's subsidiaries. The article's author had never written another story. I slammed the laptop shut. This was the man who'd touched my face in the cathedral, who'd called me little son like it was an endearment instead of a claim. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. My hand shook as I answered. Hello? You're researching me. Volkov's voice, smooth and amused. I can see the search queries from here. You should use a VPN, Solnishko. Your digital footprint is embarrassingly easy to track. I stood up so fast my head spun. How are you? The real question is what you're learning. Finding anything interesting? The warehouse fire, I said before I could stop myself. 5 years ago. 3 bodies. Silence. Then, is that a question? Did you kill them? Does it matter? His voice was still casual, but something underneath had gone cold. You're not calling me because you think I'm innocent. You're deciding if you can live with the guilt of accepting help from someone guilty. He was right. God help me. He was right. I haven't decided to call you at all, I said, but my voice wavered. Liar. You picked up the phone, didn't you? You're talking to me right now. You've already decided. You're just working up the courage to admit it. A pause. There's a car outside your building. Black SUV, 2 men inside. They've been there for 20 minutes. My stomach dropped. I moved to the window, careful to stay behind the curtain. Sure enough, an SUV I hadn't noticed before sat 3 cars down from mine. Who are they? Not mine, which means they're someone else's. I'd estimate you have until they decide you're not coming out. Then they'll come in. He said it so calmly, like he was describing the weather. 30 minutes, maybe. 40 if they're cautious. You're lying. You're trying to scare me. I don't need to lie to scare you, Mira. The truth is frightening enough. Something rustled on his end. Fabric, maybe. But I'll prove it. Walk to your window. Count to 10. Then step back. What? Why would I do it? I don't know why I listened. Maybe because the fear in my chest had grown teeth. Maybe because I needed to know. I walked to the window, started counting. At 7, headlights bloomed across the street. A Mercedes, his Mercedes, pulled up directly in front of my building. Dmitri stepped out, looked directly at the SUV. Just looked. He didn't move, didn't gesture. The SUV's engine started. It pulled away from the curb, disappeared down the street. My phone was still pressed to my ear. 38 minutes, Volkov said quietly. That's how long you had left, maybe less. Another pause. I'm downstairs. I brought coffee and a contract. You have 2 choices. Let me in and we talk, or pack a bag and run. But decide quickly, because the next car won't leave just because I ask politely. The line went dead. I stood at the window, watching Dmitri lean against the Mercedes, patient as death. Then I grabbed my keys and went downstairs. He sat in my living room like he owned it, which, given the way the universe was unfolding, he probably would soon. Alexei Volkov had draped his jacket over my thrift store armchair and rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing forearms that were all lean muscle and scattered scars. 2 coffee cups sat on my table, real coffee, the kind that smelled like it cost more than my rent. Next to them, a manila folder, leather-bound notebook, and a gun. He noticed me staring at the gun. "Insurance," he said. "Dimitri's outside, but I don't take chances." He gestured to the couch. "Sit. We have 40 minutes before I need to move you. And you'll want to understand what you're agreeing to." "I haven't agreed to anything. You let me into your apartment. That's agreement enough." He opened the folder, pulled out a single sheet of paper. "This is a contract. Simple terms. You work for me for 6 months. I provide protection, housing, a salary that's triple what you make at city planning. In exchange, you use your access and your brain to help me with certain municipal challenges." I stayed standing. "You mean you want me to help you break the law?" "I mean I want you to help me navigate the law. There's a difference." He leaned back, studied me. "I own properties across the city. Some of them have permit issues, zoning complications, inspection delays that cost me money and time. You know how the system works. You know who to talk to, which forms matter, which don't. That knowledge is valuable. That knowledge is also my job. I'd be betraying the city planning office that pays you $42,000 a year while the director drives a BMW and takes 2-hour lunches." His smile was sharp. "I did my research, Mira. You've filed 3 complaints about corruption in your department. All ignored. You tried to report a councilman taking bribes from developers. Nothing happened. You believe in the system, but the system doesn't believe in you." The words hit harder because they were true. I'd spent 2 years watching people bend rules, take shortcuts, line their pockets while I processed paperwork in a windowless office and tried to convince myself it mattered. "That doesn't make working for you right," I said quietly. "Right." He tasted the word like it was bitter. "What's right?" "Your sister slapped you in public for telling her the truth. Marcus embezzled millions and would have bankrupted her within a year. The men tracking you tonight would have tortured you for information you don't have, then killed you to cover their tracks. Where's the right in any of that?" He stood, walked toward me. I held my ground even though every instinct screamed to back away. "I'm not offering you right, Solnishko. I'm offering you survival. And if you're smart, which you are, you'll take it. And if I don't? Then I walk out that door. Dimitri drives away. You're on your own." He stopped close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "They'll come back. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. But they'll come. And I won't be here to stop them." My hands were shaking again. I crossed my arms to hide it. "Why do you even want me? You could hire anyone. Someone already in your world. Someone who understands." "Because everyone in my world has an angle. A loyalty to someone else. A price that can be bought by a higher bidder." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The same gesture from the cathedral. Still too intimate. Still too controlled. "You don't have an angle. You have principles. Annoying, inconvenient principles that made you blow up your sister's wedding instead of keeping quiet. That makes you predictable. Trustworthy, in a way. You mean controllable. I mean loyal." His fingers lingered against my jaw. "Loyalty is rare. Precious. I collect rare things." I should have pulled away. Instead, I asked, "What happened to the warehouse workers? The 3 bodies?" His hand dropped. Something flickered across his face. Not quite regret, but close. "They were stealing from me, not money, information, selling my shipping schedules to competitors, putting my people at risk." He walked back to the couch, picked up his coffee. "I gave them a choice. Disappear. Start over somewhere else. I'd even pay for it. But they got greedy. Demanded more money, threatened to go to the police with fabricated evidence. So you killed them." So I made a decision. Them or the 40 people who work in my legitimate businesses and depend on those businesses staying legitimate. He took a sip, watching me over the rim. 3 guilty men versus 40 innocent ones. You do the math. The logic was poison, seductive and toxic. Because part of me, the part that had watched corrupt officials skate free while honest people suffered, understood. You're trying to make yourself sound reasonable, I said. I'm trying to make you understand who I am, what I am. He set down the cup. I'm not the villain in this story, Mira. I'm just the only one honest about the violence required to survive in a world built on violence. A car alarm went off outside. We both froze. Volkov moved to the window in 3 strides, peered through the curtain. His shoulders relaxed marginally. Cat. False alarm. But he stayed by the window, his hand resting on the gun he'd picked up from the table. We're out of time. I need your answer. I looked at the contract on my coffee table. At the gun. At this man who'd invaded my life and was somehow the only thing standing between me and worse men. If I sign this, I said slowly, if I work for you, what happens when the 6 months end? He turned from the window. In the lamplight, his face was half shadow. That depends on whether you're still useful, and whether you're still alive. That's not reassuring. It's honest. He walked back, picked up a pen from the notebook, held it out. I don't deal in reassurance. I deal in reality. This is the reality. Sign, and you're mine to protect. Refuse, and you're theirs to hunt. The pen felt heavy in my hand. I need guarantees, I said. My family, my mother, Elena, they can't be touched. Done. I won't help you hurt innocent people. Define innocent. Alexei. He smiled at the sound of his name in my mouth. Fine. No innocence. You have my word. I signed before I could change my mind. My signature looked small and shaky next to his bold scrawl at the bottom. He took the contract, folded it carefully, slipped it into his jacket. Good. Pack a bag. Everything you need for a week. We leave in 10 minutes. Leave? Where? Somewhere they can't find you. He was already moving toward the door. Somewhere I can keep you close. Close? He looked back, and his smile had teeth. Very close, Solnishko. Welcome to my world. The estate sat behind iron gates that looked like they could stop a tank. We'd driven for 40 minutes in silence, Volkov beside me in the back seat while Dmitri navigated streets that grew progressively emptier, darker, more expensive. The houses became mansions. The mansions became estates. Then there was just a sprawling Mediterranean revival that glowed like a jewel against the night sky, all white stone and arched windows and security lights that could illuminate a small city. This is where you live? I asked as the gates swung open. One of the places. He didn't look at me, just watched the grounds passing by. This one's most secure. 14 acres, perimeter sensors, armed guards rotating every 6 hours. If someone wants to get to you here, they'll have to go through 20 trained men and me. Comforting. It should be. The car stopped beneath a portico held up by columns that belonged in a museum. Dmitri opened my door, and I stepped out, clutching my hastily packed duffel bag like a security blanket. The air smelled like jasmine and chlorine and money. Volkov moved past me toward the entrance. Maria will show you to your room. Get settled. We'll talk in the morning. Wait. I caught up to him on the steps. That's it? You uproot my entire life and now you're just sending me to my room like a child? He stopped, turned. In the harsh security lighting, his face was all planes and shadows. You signed a contract 2 hours ago. You're exhausted, probably in shock, and you need sleep. What exactly did you think would happen? I'd pour wine and we'd discuss philosophy? I thought you'd at least explain what happens next. What you expect from me. Where I'm supposed to... You're supposed to survive tonight. His voice cut through mine like a blade. Everything else is tomorrow's problem. Right now, you're safe. That's enough. It wasn't enough. Nothing about this was enough. But before I could say so, the door opened and a woman appeared. 60-something, gray hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing black pants and a crisp white shirt that screamed housekeeper or prison warden, or both. "Maria," Volkov said, his tone softening marginally. "This is Mira Castellano. She'll be staying in the East Wing. Make sure she has everything she needs." Maria's eyes swept over me, my wrinkled bridesmaid dress, my smudged makeup, my death grip on my duffel bag, and something like sympathy flickered across her face. "Of course. This way, miss." I followed her inside. The house was exactly what I'd expected and nothing like it. Yes, there was marble. Yes, there were chandeliers and artwork that probably cost more than my life. But there was also worn leather furniture in the den we passed, books stacked on tables, a coffee mug someone had left on a side table. Signs of life, not just wealth. Signs that someone actually lived here. "How long have you worked for him?" I asked as we climbed a curved staircase. Maria glanced back. 15 years. Is he good to work for?" She stopped on the landing, considered me with eyes that had seen too much. "Mr. Volkov is fair. Demanding, but fair. He protects what's his." A pause. "You'll be safe here. Whatever you're running from, it won't find you." "I'm not running." Her smile was sad. "They all say that at first." The East Wing was bigger than my entire apartment. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting area with a view of gardens I couldn't quite see in the darkness. The bed looked like something from a hotel magazine. White linens, too many pillows, a comforter that probably cost more than my car. Maria showed me the bathroom. Marble, naturally. The closet, walk-in, empty. The security panel by the door. Armed, always. "If you need anything, press 9 on the house phone. Kitchen is always stocked. Mr. Volkov takes breakfast at 7, but you're not expected to join him unless he requests it." "And if he requests it?" "Then you join him." She moved toward the door. "One more thing, miss. The East Wing is yours. The West Wing is his. There's a door connecting them, but it stays locked unless Mr. Volkov opens it from his side. Don't try to open it yourself. The security system interprets that as a breach." Of course it did. She left me alone in my gilded cage. I dropped my bag on the floor, walked to the window. The grounds spread out below, manicured lawns, a pool that glowed turquoise, what looked like a greenhouse in the distance. Beautiful, sterile, wrong. My phone buzzed. I'd somehow accumulated 17 new messages in the drive over. 3 from my mother, alternating between hysterical and accusatory. 1 from a reporter offering money for my story. 13 from unknown numbers that I deleted without reading. And 1 from Elena. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. Please call me." I stared at those 4 sentences for a long time. My sister, who'd slapped me in front of 300 people, who'd chosen to blame me instead of Marcus, who still didn't understand what I'd saved her from. I typed, "I'm safe. Don't worry about me." Then deleted it. Typed, "You should have believed me." Deleted that too. Finally settled on, "I love you. I'm okay. I need time." I hit send before I could reconsider, then turned off my phone. The silence in the room was suffocating. I should have showered. Changed. Tried to sleep. Instead, I walked to the door Maria had mentioned, the one connecting to Volkov's wing. It was wood, heavy, with an electronic lock that glowed red. Locked. I pressed my hand against it anyway, felt the cool, solid reality of it. On the other side, a man who collected rare things and called violence honest. A man who'd killed 3 people and called it mathematics. A man who'd touched my face twice like he had the right to. A man who'd saved my life. I pulled my hand back, retreated to the bed, sat on the edge with my head in my hands. This was insane. All of it. I'd signed away 6 months of my life to a criminal because I was too scared to face the alternative. I'd abandoned my apartment, my job, my life, and for what? Survival? Safety? Or because when Alexei Volkov looked at me, I felt like someone was finally paying attention? A knock on the connecting door made me jump. It didn't open. Just that single knock, deliberate and controlled. Then his voice muffled by the wood. "You're awake." I walked to the door, pressed my hand where I'd pressed it before. "Yes." "Can't sleep?" "Can you?" A pause. "No." Another pause, longer. "I wanted to make sure you hadn't tried to run. Some people do the first night." "Where would I run to?" "Smart girl." I heard him shift on the other side, imagined him standing just as close as I was, only a door between us. "Go to sleep, Mira. Tomorrow we start work. You'll need your strength." "Alexei?" "Yes." I didn't know what I wanted to say. "Thank you?" "I hate you?" "Why does your voice sound different when there's a door between us?" "Nothing. Good night." "Good night, Solnishko." His footsteps retreated. I stayed at the door for another 5 minutes, hand pressed to wood, imagining I could feel his warmth on the other side. Then I went to bed and dreamed of burning warehouses and men who collected rare things and kept them locked away. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I didn't recognize, and the smell of coffee I couldn't afford. For 5 perfect seconds I forgot where I was. Then reality crashed back. The contract, the estate, the locked door between my room and his. I checked my phone. 6:47 a.m. Volkov took breakfast at 7. I showered fast, pulled on jeans and a sweater from my duffel bag, tried to make my face look less like I'd slept 3 hours. Failed. The mirror showed me a woman with shadows under her eyes and a bruise blooming purple on her cheek where Elena had struck me. The bruise made everything real again. I found my way downstairs following the smell of coffee and something else. Bread, maybe, or pastries. The house looked different in daylight, less imposing and more lived in. Morning sun painted the marble warm instead of cold. Someone had opened windows. A breeze carried in the scent of jasmine. The dining room faced the gardens. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A table that could seat 20 but was set for 2. And Alexei Volkov sitting at the head reading a newspaper like he was anyone else starting their day. He looked up when I entered. His eyes went immediately to the bruise on my cheek, and something dark flickered across his face. "Sit," he said, folding the paper. "Maria made serniki, Russian cheese pancakes. You'll like them." I sat 3 chairs away from him. He noticed, smiled slightly. "I don't bite at breakfast," he said. "Usually." Comforting. Maria appeared with coffee, real coffee. The kind that smelled like it cost more per cup than I made per hour. And plates loaded with golden pancakes topped with sour cream, and what looked like berry compote. She set mine down gently, gave Volkov his with practiced efficiency, then disappeared. "Eat," Volkov said. "You didn't have dinner last night." "How do you know?" "Because I checked on you at midnight and you were standing at the door. At 2 a.m. you were pacing. At 4 you finally went to bed." He took a sip of coffee, watching me over the rim. "The security system tracks movement in all the rooms." Heat flooded my face. "You were watching me?" "I was making sure you were safe. There's a difference." "Is there?" He set down his cup. "Yes. If I was watching you for pleasure, I would have opened the door. I have the override code. I could have walked into your room any time I wanted." He cut into his pancakes with surgical precision. "I didn't. I won't. Not unless you ask me to. Or unless someone's trying to kill you, whichever comes first." The casualness of it, the way he could discuss invasions of privacy and murder in the same breath, made my stomach twist. I pushed the food around my plate. You need to eat, he said quietly. I need you sharp today. We have work to do. What kind of work? He reached into the chair beside him, pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. 3 properties, a warehouse in the industrial district, a restaurant downtown, and an apartment complex in Riverside. All have permit issues. All are being blocked by the same inspector, Thomas Kern. I need to know why. I opened the folder. Inspection reports, permit applications, correspondence with the city. Everything looked standard except... These were all approved, I said slowly. Then rescinded 2 weeks later. That's unusual. That's corruption. Volkov leaned back in his chair. Someone's paying Kern to delay my projects. I need to know who. I need leverage. And I need both by Friday. That's 4 days. Yes. I looked up from the folder. And if I can't find anything in 4 days? His smile was cold. Then we find another way. But you will find something. Thomas Kern has been an inspector for 12 years. Nobody stays that long in that position without getting creative with their ethics. You know the system. You know where people hide their mistakes. He wasn't wrong. I'd seen it before. Inspectors who stretched out timelines to squeeze bribes from desperate property owners. Officials who approved projects for friends and blocked competitors. The system was full of cracks, and people like Kern lived in those cracks. If I do this, I said carefully, if I find proof Kern is corrupt, what happens to him? That depends on what you find. Alexei? He'll lose his job, maybe face charges if the evidence is clear enough. He paused. Or maybe we just use the information to persuade him to approve my permits and leave him in place. A corrupt inspector you control is more useful than an honest one you don't. The logic was poison again. Practical and terrible. I took a bite of the pancakes. They were perfect, crispy outside, soft inside. The berry compote tart and sweet. Of course they were perfect. Everything in this house was perfect except the man who owned it. Your sister called, Volkov said suddenly. I froze. What? Last night, around midnight. She called my number. I'm not sure how she got it, but I have theories. She wanted to know if you were here. If you were safe. He swirled his coffee absently. I told her yes. You talked to Elena? Briefly. She was crying, apologizing, saying she didn't mean to hit you, that she was scared and angry and Marcus had been feeding her lies about you for weeks. His eyes met mine. She said she believed you now. About the money. About everything. My throat felt tight. Did she say anything else? She asked me not to hurt you. He smiled, but it wasn't his usual sharp smile. This one was almost sad. I told her I couldn't promise that, because people in my world get hurt. It's not a question of if, only when and how much. You could have lied to her. I don't lie to people who love you. They deserve better than that. The statement sat between us, heavy and strange. Alexei Volkov, who killed people and called it mathematics, who monitored my movements and called it security, refusing to lie to my sister out of some twisted sense of honor. I want to call her, I said. No. The word was flat, final. Not yet. Your phone is off. It stays off. Anyone looking for you will track it, trace it, use it to find you. In a week, maybe 2, when things settle, you can make contact. Until then, she thinks you're safe. That's enough. It's not enough. It has to be. He stood, grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. Dmitri will drive you to your office at 9. You'll work your normal shift, act normal, access the files you need on Kern. I'll have someone watching, but you won't see them. What if someone asks where I've been? What I've been doing? Tell them you stayed with a friend after the wedding drama. Keep it simple. Lies work best when they're boring. He walked toward the door, paused. And Mira? Yes? He turned back. In the morning light, with his tie slightly loosened and his hair not quite perfect, he looked almost human. Almost. Don't try to warn Kern. Don't try to be noble. He's not worth your conscience, and I need this done. His voice dropped. Please. The please surprised me more than anything else he'd said. Okay, I whispered. He left. I sat alone in the dining room, surrounded by luxury and sunlight, and wondered when exactly I'd stopped thinking about escape and started thinking about earning his trust instead. The answer scared me more than the bruise on my face. Thomas Kern's file cabinet had a broken lock. I noticed it at 2:47 p.m., 3 hours into pretending everything was normal, while my coworkers whispered about Elena's destroyed wedding and shot me sympathetic looks that felt like judgment. The office was exactly as I'd left it. Fluorescent lights, beige cubicles, the perpetual smell of burnt coffee and defeat. Kern's office was one door down from mine. He'd left for an inspection at 2. I'd watched him go, waited 15 minutes, then slipped inside with a stack of permit applications as my excuse. The lock on the bottom drawer had been jimmied. Recently, I could see fresh scratches on the metal. Someone else had been looking for something. I pulled it open anyway. Folders, dozens of them. But underneath, hidden beneath a false bottom that lifted away easily, a ledger. Handwritten. Names, dates, amounts. And next to each amount, an address that corresponded to properties I recognized, including all 3 of Volkoff's. Thomas Kern wasn't just corrupt, he was organized about it. I pulled out my phone, the burner Dmitri had given me this morning with exactly 1 number programmed in, and started photographing pages. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't. Because next to Volkoff's properties, the amounts were different, bigger. And the name paying wasn't an individual or company I recognized. It was just 2 initials. VM. I was photographing the 3rd page when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Fast. Purposeful. Not Kern. He shuffled. These steps belonged to someone younger, more dangerous. I shoved the ledger back, closed the drawer, grabbed my permit applications, and stood just as the door opened. The man who entered wasn't anyone I recognized. Mid-30s, expensive suit, smile that didn't reach his eyes. He looked at me. At the office, at the filing cabinet with its broken lock. Lost? He asked pleasantly. Looking for Inspector Kern. I have permits that need his signature. I held up the applications like they were a shield. Kern's out. He stepped inside, closed the door behind him. The click of the latch sounded too loud. I'm Victor Marchetti. I work with the Municipal Oversight Committee. And you are? VM. The initials on the ledger. My mouth went dry. Mira Castellano, City Planning. Ah, the girl from the wedding. His smile widened. Quite a scene. Your sister must be devastated. She'll recover. Will she? He moved closer, casual and predatory. And you? How are you recovering? Must be hard. Having your family fall apart so publicly. Having nowhere to go. No one to turn to. He was fishing, testing, trying to figure out if I knew anything, if I was a threat. I forced my voice steady. I'm fine. Just here to do my job. Of course. Your job. He glanced at the filing cabinet again. Kern's very particular about his files. Doesn't like people in his office when he's not here. You should probably go. It wasn't a suggestion. I walked toward the door. He didn't move, made me squeeze past him. Close enough that I smelled his cologne, expensive and cloying. Close enough that I felt his breath on my neck when he spoke. Be careful, Miss Castellano. This city is dangerous for people who ask too many questions, especially right now, especially for you. I left without responding, walked back to my cubicle on legs that wanted to run. My coworker Sarah glanced up, started to say something, but I was already grabbing my bag, my jacket, heading for the exit. I made it to the street before I called the number. Volkov answered on the first ring. What happened? Not a question. A demand. Victor Marchetti just cornered me in Kern's office. He knows who I am. He knows about the wedding, and he's paying Kern to block your permits. The words tumbled out too fast. The ledger shows VM paying off inspectors across the city. Not just Kern. At least 6 others. It's systematic. Organized. Silence. Then, where are you now? Outside my building. Corner of 5th and... I know where you are. Stay visible. Stay in public. Dmitri will be there in 4 minutes. His voice had gone cold. Controlled. The voice he probably used before he killed people. Did Marchetti touch you? No, but did he threaten you directly? Not in words, but... Good. That gives me room to work with. A pause. You did well, Solnishko. Better than I expected. Now get in the car when it arrives and don't argue. The line went dead. Dimitri's Mercedes pulled up 3.5 minutes later. I got in without hesitation this time. The fear had burned through any remaining resistance. We drove in silence until I couldn't stand it anymore. Who is Victor Marchetti? Dmitri glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Someone you don't want to meet again. Too late for that. Then someone you definitely don't want to meet alone. He turned down a street I didn't recognize. He runs municipal oversight like a personal kingdom. Politicians, inspectors, contractors, they all pay tribute. Mr. Volkov's been trying to operate around him for 2 years. Clean, legal, by the book. Marchetti blocks him anyway. Why? Because Mr. Volkov won't bow, won't pay, won't acknowledge Marchetti's authority. A ghost of a smile. Some men don't know how to share power. They'd rather destroy than compromise. We pulled through the gates of the estate. But instead of the main house, Dmitri drove around back to a building I hadn't noticed last night. Smaller, modern, all glass and steel. Security was tighter here. Armed guards, cameras, a door that required 3 separate scans to open. What is this place? I asked. Where Mr. Volkov actually works, Dmitri said. Welcome to the real business. Inside was an office that could have belonged to any tech company. Clean desks, multiple monitors, a conference table. Except for the gun safe in the corner and the detailed map of the city covering one entire wall, marked with pins and notes I couldn't read from a distance. Volkov stood at the map, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Russian. When he saw me, he ended the call. Show me, he said. I pulled out the burner, showed him the photographs. He studied each one in silence, his jaw tightening progressively with each image. This is war, he said finally. Marchetti's declaring war, using you to send me a message. What message? He looked up from the phone. His eyes were black fire. That nothing I care about is safe. Not my properties, not my business. He stepped closer. Not you. I'm not. Yes, you are. He cupped my face, thumb brushing over my bruised cheek with unexpected gentleness. You became mine the moment you signed that contract. And Marchetti just made you a target to hurt me. His voice dropped to something raw. Dangerous. So now I have to decide. Do I send you away where you'll be safe but vulnerable, or keep you close where you'll be protected but trapped? That's not your choice to make. Isn't it? His thumb traced my jaw. Tell me to send you away, Mira. Tell me you want to leave. I'll have you on a plane tonight. I should have said yes, should have run. Instead, I whispered, what happens if I stay? His smile was terrible and beautiful. Then we go to war together. War started with a phone call at 3 a.m. I woke to shouting. Volkov's voice, sharp and vicious in Russian, coming through the connecting door. Then footsteps. Movement. The sound of something heavy being thrown. I sat up in the darkness. Heart hammering. Silence fell. Then a single knock on the door between our rooms. Mira. His voice was strained. I'm coming in. Don't be alarmed. The lock clicked. The door opened. Alexei Volkov stood in the doorway, backlit by his room, wearing only sleep pants. His hair was disheveled, his chest bare, and I could see the full map of scars I'd only glimpsed before. A bullet wound near his shoulder, what looked like a knife slash across his ribs, smaller marks scattered like constellations. But it was his face that stopped my breath. Raw, furious, afraid. Get dressed, he said. We're leaving. Now. What happened? Marchetti hit one of my warehouses, the one in the industrial district, the same one where I store shipments for my legitimate businesses. He ran a hand through his hair. There was a fire. 3 people inside. My people. The warehouse, like 5 years ago. 3 bodies. Are they? 2 are in the hospital. Critical condition. The 3rd? He stopped. Swallowed. The 3rd didn't make it out. I stood, grabbed the sweater from the chair. My hands were shaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't? The word came out sharp. Don't apologize for something you didn't do. Marchetti did this, because I wouldn't bend, because I brought you into this, because... He stopped himself, jaw clenched. Get dressed, please. I pulled on jeans under his gaze. He didn't look away, didn't pretend not to watch. The intimacy of it. Him half naked in my room while I changed. Both of us too scared to care about propriety. Felt more dangerous than anything that had come before. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere Marchetti can't touch. Somewhere I should have taken you days ago instead of believing I could protect you here. He disappeared into his room, returned 30 seconds later wearing a black shirt, shoulder holster already in place. My father's house, 2 hours north. It's isolated, defensible. No one knows about it except family. Your father is dead. He checked his gun with practiced efficiency. The house is empty except for a caretaker. We'll be alone. Alone. The word hung between us, heavy with implication. Dmitri was waiting by the car, face grim. 2 other men I didn't recognize flanked him, armed and alert. The estate that had felt like a fortress now felt like a target. We drove through darkness, Volkov silent beside me, his hand resting on the gun in his lap. I watched the city disappear in the rearview mirror, replaced by empty highways and industrial zones that looked like graveyards. Tell me about them, I said finally. The people who were hurt. He was quiet so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Anton worked for me for 8 years. Married, 2 kids. He was supposed to be off tonight but covered someone's shift. Marina was new, 6 months. Studying engineering, working nights to pay for school. And Peter? His voice cracked slightly. Peter was my cousin, 23. Stupid and loyal, and he thought working for me made him invincible. The one who died. Yes. He stared out the window. I told him to go home. Told him the shipment could wait until morning. He stayed anyway because he wanted to prove himself. His reflection in the glass looked haunted. They all stayed because of me. Because I needed that warehouse operational. Because I was too proud to give Marchetti what he wanted. I reached across the seat, took his hand. He startled, looked down at our joined fingers like he'd forgotten what touch felt like. This isn't your fault, I said. Isn't it? He turned his hand over, laced our fingers together. His palm was warm, calloused. I chose this war. Marchetti offered me terms last year, pay him, acknowledge his authority, operate under his rules. I refused. Pride, principle, and now Peter's dead. Marchetti set that fire, not you. But I lit the match. He squeezed my hand and I felt the tremor in his grip, the first sign of fracture in his control. I brought you into this world, put you in his crosshairs, used you to gather information I could have gotten other ways. And when he cornered you yesterday, when he put his hands near you, he didn't touch me. He wanted to. I saw the security footage from your building. The way he looked at you. The way he invaded your space. His voice dropped to something feral. I wanted to kill him for that. Still do. But if I kill him now, the whole city burns. His people, my people, everyone in between. We turned off the highway onto a narrow road that climbed into hills I couldn't see in the darkness. Trees pressed close on either side, branches scraping against the car like fingers. So what do? I asked. We hide. We plan. We wait for him to make a mistake. He looked at our joined hands. And I keep you safe. Whatever it costs. Whatever I have to do. The house appeared suddenly. A sprawling ranch-style structure built into the hillside. All dark wood and stone. Invisible until we were almost on top of it. Dmitri pulled up to the entrance, and Volkov finally released my hand. 2 men will patrol the perimeter, he said, all business again. Dmitri stays in the guest house. You and I take the main house. Don't open doors or windows. Don't leave without me. If you hear anything unusual, you come find me immediately. Understood? Yes. We went inside. The house smelled like dust and old wood and memories. Volkov turned on minimal lights, checked rooms with military precision, then led me down a hallway to a bedroom that overlooked dark forest. This was my room, he said. Growing up, you'll be safe here. Where will you be? He gestured to the door across the hall. Right there. 10 steps away. The doors don't lock from the inside. I wanted you to know that. The confession was quiet. Vulnerable. An offering of trust from a man who probably hadn't trusted anyone in years. Alexei. I stepped closer. What you said in the car, about this being your fault, it's not. Marchetti's a killer. He would have found an excuse eventually. Maybe. He reached out, tucked hair behind my ear, the gesture that was becoming familiar, intimate. But I gave him you. That's unforgivable. I'm not yours to protect. Yes, you are. His hand cupped my face. You became mine the moment I touched you in that cathedral. I just didn't want to admit it. Didn't want to face what that meant. And now? He leaned close, his forehead almost touching mine. Now I'm terrified. Because everyone I protect eventually gets hurt. And I can't lose you, Solnishko. Not you. The kiss happened without decision. His mouth on mine, desperate and careful. Like I was something precious and breakable. I kissed him back, tasting fear and fury and something else. Want, raw and undeniable. He pulled away first, breathing hard. That was a mistake. Was it? Yes, because now I can't pretend anymore. He stepped back. Get some sleep. We'll figure out the rest in the morning. He left. The door closed. I stood alone in his childhood bedroom, lips still burning, and realized I'd stopped thinking about survival. Now I was thinking about what it meant to belong to someone who lived in the dark, and how much I wanted to pull him into the light. I found him on the back deck at dawn, staring at forest that stretched for miles. He hadn't slept. I could tell by the rigid set of his shoulders, the coffee cup that sat untouched beside him. The way he stood perfectly still like movement might shatter whatever control he'd rebuilt after last night's kiss. I'd lain awake in his childhood bed, trying not to think about the taste of his mouth, the desperation in his hands, the way he'd said I can't lose you like it was a confession and a curse. Now, in the gray morning light, he looked like a stranger again. Dangerous. Distant. The man who'd killed 3 people and called it mathematics. "You're up early," he said without turning around. "So are you." I stepped onto the deck, wrapped my arms around myself against the chill. "Have you heard anything? About the hospital? About—" "Anton died an hour ago. Marina's stable but critical. The doctors say she'll live, but—" He finally looked at me. His eyes were red-rimmed, haunted. "She'll never use her right hand again. Burns. 3rd degree. Her engineering career is over before it started." The weight of it crushed down. 2 dead, 1 permanently damaged. All because of a man's pride and another man's cruelty. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I know." He turned back to the forest. "I've been thinking. About what I said last night. About the kiss. It was inappropriate. You're under my protection, living in my house, working for me. The power dynamic makes anything between us impossible." Each word felt like a door closing. "So you're taking it back," I said. "I'm being realistic. You're here because you have no choice. Because Marchetti made you a target, and I'm the only thing standing between you and worse men. That's not the foundation for anything real. You don't get to decide what I feel. No. But I get to decide what I do about it." He finally picked up the coffee, drank like it was medicine. "When this is over, when Marchetti's handled, when you're safe, you'll go back to your life. Your apartment, your job, your sister. This will all feel like a nightmare you survived. And the last thing you'll want is a reminder of the man who pulled you into hell. You didn't pull me, I jumped. Because you were falling anyway." He set down the cup with too much force. "Don't romanticize this, Mira. Don't make me into something I'm not. I'm a killer. A criminal. A man who solves problems with violence because it's the only language I speak fluently. You deserve better than that. What if I don't want better? What if I want real?" The question hung between us, dangerous as any weapon. His phone buzzed. He checked it. And whatever he saw there made his face go hard. "Get inside. Now." "What?" "Inside." He was already moving, hand on the gun I hadn't noticed at his hip. Dmitri just spotted tire tracks on the access road. Fresh. Within the last hour. Someone found us. Fear spiked through me. "How? You said no one knew about this place." "They shouldn't." He pushed me toward the door. Which means either someone followed us or someone talked. Either way, we're compromised. We made it inside just as Dmitri appeared, weapon drawn. "2 vehicles," he said in rapid Russian, then switched to English. "Coming up the hill. 5 minutes out, maybe less. We need to move." Volkov's mind was already working, calculating. "The root cellar. It connects to the old service tunnel my grandfather built during the Cold War. Comes out half a mile down the mountain." "You want to run?" Dmitri asked. "I want her alive." Volkov grabbed my hand, pulled me toward the kitchen. "Running keeps her alive. Fighting here gets her killed in the crossfire." He moved a rug, revealed a trapdoor I'd never have noticed. Below, darkness and stone steps leading down into earth that smelled like damp and age. "Go," he said. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you. I need to grab something first." He was already moving back toward the hallway. "Dmitri, get her to the tunnel exit. The car I keep there should still run. Drive her to the safe house in Vermont. Code is 1847. "Alexei," I started. "This isn't negotiable." He stopped, turned. "I knew this might happen. Marchetti's persistent, and I've made too many enemies to hide forever. But he doesn't get to have you. Whatever else happens, he doesn't get you." Dmitri was already pulling me toward the cellar. I fought against his grip. "I'm not leaving you here." "Yes, you are." Volkov walked back, fast, cupped my face in both hands. "Listen to me. In my bedroom, top drawer of the dresser, there's an envelope with your name on it. Money, documents, instructions. If something happens, if I don't make it out, you follow those instructions. They'll get you somewhere safe, somewhere Marchetti can't find you. Stop talking like you're going to die. I'm talking like a man who understands odds. He kissed me, hard and fast and final. You made me feel something, Solnishko. Something I thought I'd lost the capacity for. That's worth protecting. You're worth protecting. Gunfire erupted outside. Close. Too close. Go! Volkov shoved me toward Dmitri, who pulled me down the steps into darkness. The trapdoor slammed shut above us. Wait! I screamed, but Dmitri had an arm around my waist, was dragging me deeper into the tunnel. We have to help him. We can't just leave him. He gave me an order. Dmitri's voice was rough. My job is you. His job is them. That's how this works. The tunnel was narrow, lit by battery-powered lights that flickered like dying stars. We ran through cold darkness while above us, the sounds of violence grew. More gunfire, shouting, something that might have been an explosion. Then silence. Terrible, absolute silence. Dmitri's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his face went white. What? I demanded. What happened? He didn't answer. Just kept pulling me forward through the tunnel that seemed to stretch forever. We emerged into forest, into morning light that hurt after the darkness. A car sat hidden under camouflage netting, old but maintained, keys in the ignition. Dmitri opened the passenger door, pushed me inside. Vermont. The address is in the GPS. Don't stop. Don't call anyone. Don't... Where are you going? He was already moving back toward the tunnel. To get him out. Or die trying. Dmitri. He saved my life once, in Moscow. Took a bullet meant for me. His smile was sad. I owe him this. He disappeared into the trees. I sat in the car, hands shaking on the steering wheel, staring at the GPS coordinates that would take me to safety. Above me, somewhere in those hills, Alexei Volkov was fighting for his life, and I was running away like he'd ordered. I started the engine. Then I turned the car around and drove back toward the gunfire. Because some things were worth dying for, and he'd become one of them. I found him in the forest, bleeding, not dead, not yet, but close enough that my heart stopped when I saw him slumped against a tree, hand pressed to his side where blood seeped through his fingers like dark wine. Dmitri was beside him, applying pressure to a wound on Volkov's shoulder. 3 bodies lay scattered in the clearing. Marchetti's men, I assumed. The price of finding us. You were supposed to go to Vermont, Volkov said when he saw me. His voice was weak but furious. You were supposed to be safe. Shut up. I dropped to my knees beside him, hands hovering uselessly. Where else are you hit? How bad is it? Shoulder, side, nothing vital. He winced as Dmitri pressed harder. I'll live. Unfortunately, so will Marchetti. He wasn't with them. Just sent his dogs. We need to get you to a hospital. No hospitals. Gunshot wounds trigger reports. He tried to sit up straighter, failed. There's a doctor, 20 miles south. He's discreet. I looked at Dmitri. Can you drive? I'm not leaving him. Dmitri's face was pale but determined. You drive. I'll keep pressure on the wounds. We go now or he bleeds out in these woods and Marchetti wins. We got Volkov into the back seat, a nightmare of blood and bitten-off screams and apologies that felt useless. Dmitri climbed in beside him, already pulling off his shirt to use as a compress. I got behind the wheel, hands slick with Volkov's blood. GPS coordinates, Dmitri barked, then rattled off numbers I punched in with shaking fingers. 20 miles, through winding mountain roads, with a man bleeding out in my back seat. I drove like the devil was chasing us. Maybe he was. Mira. Volkov's voice from the back, Quieter now. Weaker. You should have run. I know. You should have saved yourself. I know that too. Then why? Because I'm an idiot. I took a turn too fast, tires screaming. Because you kissed me and told me I made you feel something, and I'm stupid enough to think that means something. Because I'm tired of running from everything and everyone, and maybe dying with you is better than living without you. Silence from the back seat. Then, you don't mean that. Don't tell me what I mean. My eyes burned. I blinked hard, focused on the road. Don't tell me what I feel. You don't get to kiss me like I'm oxygen and then decide I'm just some obligation you're protecting. I'm trying to give you an out. I don't want an out. I want... He's unconscious, Dmitri interrupted. Drive faster. The doctor was exactly what you'd expect. A man in his 60s operating out of a farmhouse that smelled like antiseptic and secrets, asking no questions and expecting payment in cash. He took one look at Volkov and gestured to a room that had been set up like a surgery, complete with equipment that looked disturbingly well used. Wait outside, he said. No. I planted myself beside the door. I'm staying. He looked at Dmitri, who shrugged. She drove through hell to get him here. She's staying. 2 hours. That's how long it took to extract bullets, clean wounds, stitch flesh back together. 2 hours of watching Alexei Volkov, the man who'd seemed invincible, untouchable, reduced to pale skin and shallow breathing and blood-soaked gauze. When it was finally done, the doctor wiped his hands. He'll live. The shoulder wound missed the artery by centimeters. The side wound is messy but manageable. He needs rest, antibiotics, and someone to watch him for the next 48 hours. Any signs of fever, breathing problems, excessive bleeding, call me. He left us in that sterile room with instructions and medication and a bill that Dmitri paid without blinking. Volkov woke an hour later. His eyes found me immediately, sitting in the chair beside the bed where I'd been waiting. You're still here. Where else would I be? Vermont. Safe. Far away from me. He tried to sit up, thought better of it. How bad? You'll live. The doctor said you were lucky. Personally, I think you're too stubborn to die. A ghost of a smile. Probably true? He looked down at the bandages, the IV Dmitri had insisted on. Marchetti will know his men failed. He'll send more. Better ones. We can't stay here. The doctor says you can't be moved for at least 24 hours. The doctor doesn't understand what Marchetti's capable of. Then we hold here. Dimitri's already positioned outside. We have weapons, supplies, a defensible position. I leaned forward. And you're in no shape to argue. He studied me for a long moment. You came back. Even though I ordered you to run. Even though staying could have gotten you killed. Yes. Why? The question was simple. The answer wasn't. Because somewhere between that cathedral and this moment, you stopped being the monster I was afraid of and became the person I can't walk away from. I took his hand, careful of the IV. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you stopped my sister from hitting me again. Maybe when you refused to lie to her on the phone. Maybe when you kissed me like you'd been drowning and I was air. But it happened. Mira, I know what you are. What you've done. The blood on your hands isn't metaphorical. I can see it, smell it, taste it in the air around you. You've killed people. You'll probably kill more. You live in a world where violence is currency and mercy is weakness. I squeezed his hand. But you also protected me when you didn't have to. Gave me a choice when you could have just taken. Mourned your cousin's death like it mattered. Like he mattered. That doesn't make me good. No, but it makes you human. And I'd rather have a human monster who chooses kindness when he can than a so-called good man who's cruel when it's convenient. He pulled me down, gentle despite his injuries, until my forehead rested against his. If you stay, there's no going back. You'll be mine, completely. And I don't share well with others. Is that a threat or a promise? Both. His mouth found mine, soft and careful. I'll ruin you for other men, Solnishko. I'll make you complicit in things you can't forgive. I'll love you in ways that feel like violence and protect you with methods that look like sin. Then ruin me. I kissed him back. Because I'm tired of being safe and small and scared. I want dangerous. I want real. I want you. His arms wrapped around me, one hand tangling in my hair. You'll regret this. Probably. I settled carefully against his uninjured side. But I'll regret not trying even more. Outside, night was falling. Somewhere, Marchetti was planning his next move. Somewhere, war was still waiting. But in that room, with blood drying on my hands and a killer's heartbeat steady beneath my ear, I'd never felt safer. Or more alive. Or more certain that some choices, the dangerous ones, the impossible ones, were worth making anyway. Sleep, I whispered. I'll keep watch. We'll keep watch together, he murmured, already drifting. From now on, everything's together. I held him as he slept, this beautiful, broken, deadly man who'd somehow become my future. And when Dmitri knocked softly to report all clear, I realized something that should have terrified me. I was home. Not in this farmhouse or his estate or my abandoned apartment, but here, in the space between his heartbeat and mine, where monsters learn to love and good girls learn that survival sometimes looked like surrender.